Mexico and so forth.
I mean, yeah, everything that was going on with all of these individuals was, I mean, swirling through this area, definitely a part of it. And I mean, just everything that went into it. Again, there are just the pictures that I love seeing from the part of the history of all these individuals that were coming through the region, doing things here, you know, pressing the flesh in some cases, recruiting, making themselves, trying to make political deals as best they could. I mean, any real conflict of this scale has such, you know, waxing and waning of fortunes that come along with it. I mean, it's just fascinating to trace here. And so speaking about those kind of waxing and waning of fortunes here, that election of 1912 was its own tumultuous bit of history here, because it'd be hard pressed if you're looking really back at history at some wilder circumstances coming out of it. I mean, we had one of the outside of the modern era, and arguably, even if you consider that there having been viable third-party candidates before, this was in a way that you'd be hard-pressed to find a different example of.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So maybe to set this up, the 1912 election was fought between 4 candidates. So you had on the side of the Democratic Party, you had Woodrow Wilson, governor of New Jersey and former president of Princeton University. Then you had on the Republican side, you had the sitting president, William Howard Taft. Taft had been president since Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was done in 1908, and it was actually Roosevelt's picked successor. So he really thought that Roosevelt was a progressive, and he really thought that Taft would push his progressive agenda. And it turned out in those 4 years of Taft's presidency, Roosevelt was dismayed at how Taft was running the country. And so this very close friendship of the two turned into a violent campaign against each other. Roosevelt first tried to get the nomination against Taft, but he didn't succeed with that. So he started a new party, and it's called the Bull Moose Party. Do you know where that comes from? Bull moose?
The phrase that I remember from history class is that he felt like a bull moose. I mean,
Exactly.
He was, the famous, outdoorsman and adventurer personality that he had. The idea of this kind of being, this strong individual. I mean, a moose is not something you mess around with if you've ever actually encountered one.
Exactly. Yeah. So he said, "I'm fit as a moose," and that's why he called it the Bull Moose Party. In the campaign, he actually got almost killed. Some person shot him, and so he had a bullet lodged in his chest, and instead of going to the hospital, gave a speech. And said it will take more than a bullet to kill this moose. So there you go.
That kind of fits the persona and the public nature of Teddy Roosevelt there. And so, I mean, again, just to describe that another way here, we have a sitting president, we have an opposition party presidential candidate, and then we have a former president coming back and saying, no, I didn't like the guy that replaced me. I'm running again as my own party. Just to describe that as succinctly as I can for how crazy it was.
Absolutely crazy. And Roosevelt, he did not mince words. You see in history books, they write that he had a way with words. So he called his old friend Taft a fathead, a dimwit. I got some funnier quotes here. With brains less than a guinea pig, a flubbed up with a streak of the second rate. So you can only imagine his attacks were so violent that in an interview that Taft gave during the campaign, he actually started having tears in his eyes. He recalled how much he was a friend of Roosevelt's before, and how his friendship had evaporated like a rope of sand. So yeah, it was violent, and it was in a sense also vile, really. Taft was obese, quite obese, about 330 to 350 pounds. And so Roosevelt horribly made fun of him. And, so that it was nasty. It really was. And, in party meetings and events on the campaign trail, it would be normal to have fist fights and people clubbing each other. So, it was quite a violent time. And so, yeah, this was probably the craziest election in our life.
And while there may be some parallels that can be drawn to modern circumstances, anyone wanting to get into modern politics, you're going to be reminded that we have the Monday through Friday program for that purpose here. Not getting into them in this circumstance here because the historical nature and the after effects of it, because, all of this happened. This was, the politics was also kind of a form of entertainment at that point in time in this country's history. And so the involvement from across the country was pretty significant. And this is kind of the inciting point of where we see the beginning of the involvement and the prominence, the starting to come to prominence of Zach Cobb himself.
Yeah, exactly. So if you, the reason why the 1912 election is really important to recall when we talk about Cobb is that first of all, we had basically 4 administrations that were Republican. And so it was actually, if Roosevelt would have not challenged Taft, it was kind of a shoo-in for Taft to have a second term. As it turned out, of course, we know that Woodrow Wilson won. But Woodrow Wilson was also not really the favorite candidate of the Democrats at first. So this was also quite a fight on the Democratic side. You had Champ Clark, who was the Speaker of the House, who was running against against Wilson in the nomination process. And you also had William Jennings Bryan. So if you, I think you just put up a picture.
So we have the picture up here. And if you're familiar with that part of history or you've even studied it at all, that is kind of a famous and infamous name in its own right.
Right. So Bryan basically had been the eternal candidate for president. He ran 3 times and lost 3 times. But he also was a very well-known orator. The first time he ran for president, he was only 36 years old. I think he still holds that record for being the youngest presidential candidate. He invented the stump speech, so something that we take for granted today, that candidates are running around the country and giving speeches, and that's really where Bryan got his grit. He according to a book that I read, he addressed 27 million Americans in 1908 when he ran against Taft. So so Bryan is a really interesting guy. His convictions, a pacifist, very religious. Much later, he became well known for the Scopes monkey trial in the 1920s, where he argued against Darwin, and so that's claim to fame there. But so he's an interesting guy, an orator, and let's see. I have a really good quote. Let's see what Roosevelt called him. Roosevelt called him a professional yodeler. a human trombone. So anyway, this was kind of the constellation in the Democratic Party. Wilson received his nomination after the 46th ballot. So it went around 46 times before he became the nominee. And instrumental, of course, was Bryan actually switching his support from Champ Clark to Wilson. But there was also a Texas delegation. And this Texas delegation was led by this unknown lawyer, Zach Cobb, from El Paso. And so this is the first time we kind of see Cobb in action as a politician. And Wilson showed his gratitude to, of course, Bryan, making him the Secretary of State after the election. And Cobb received the job here as customs collector in El Paso.
So that's how we get to Cobb being in a position of power here that would then set up, again, everything else down the line that we kind of hinted at the start here. And result of this political process, because that was a political appointee at that point in time. I mean, you did your favors. The people who supported you, the people who helped you came up here. Not that that doesn't happen anymore, but at that point in time, that was just how things worked. You were expected to, if people were going to support you, they were doing it because they saw something in it for themselves as well.
Exactly. And you can see, obviously we know about ambassadorships and things like that being given to party supporters. The customs collector, that was quite a responsible job. And you can see how it is a political job. It's not just enforcing customs law. And, we kind of think of it as, like a customs guy that makes sure that nobody smuggles or whatever. It was also enforcing the foreign policy of the administration. And so this is where Cobb really becomes interesting when you look at the Mexican Revolution raging right here across the border, with people winning in Mexico and the outs coming to El Paso, plotting again to go back in. And then depending on what the U.S. government was supporting or not, they were more or less strict with smuggling and preventing excursions of people here and recruiting and all these things that we know about. Yeah.
And so that foreign policy implications, that's where we're really going to be getting a lot of the interesting details here. But we're due for that first break of this hour right now. Again, you are listening to the El Paso History Radio Show, and joining us here is Heribert von Feilitzsch, independent scholar, author, and historian, and author of a number of books on this subject here. You actually got your website, felixsommerfeld.com, that FelixSommerfeld.com, and your Mexican Revolution blog that you have over there. And again, some of the stuff that you're doing research or adjacent things on research for. So we'll talk more about that after the break here and get more into the story about Zach Cobb and everything that came after it here. So again, going to be taking that first break of the hour here. Got a lot of people tuning in over on the social media, letting us know, resolving some of those technical issues. Thank you for the details there. But we do have Angie Salazar, Barbara Given Bainey, of course, have to say hi to her, Michael Pata, D. Ann Umberson Kasich, Monica Cervantes, and Flaco Jimenez, all joining us over there. So thank you for tuning in that way. Again, you can find us over on social media and many of those outlets, or listening online and, of course, on air. So thank you for tuning in all of those ways. We'll be back right after this break with more of the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Doniphan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the Juan and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Doniphan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Hey El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso strong. Excludes factory rebate and dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APR is $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Drowning in IRS debt? If you can't afford to pay your IRS debt due to economic hardship, you can now be free of IRS collection efforts by taking advantage of a special IRS tax hardship program. This program allows Americans who owe the IRS to resolve their delinquent tax debt once and for all. In some cases, maybe even reducing what you owe significantly. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Simply dial 800-600-3010. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back or have years of unfiled tax returns, help is standing by. Just call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-600-3010 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-600-3010 to see if you qualify. That's 800-600-3010.
It's the sale worth shooting for. The Casa Buick GMC Slam Dunk Sales Event. Paso Buick GMC, the #1 used car dealer, is fast bringing their top-ranked Buick and SUV lineup straight to your driveway.
2022 Buick Encore will be sold at the lowest advertised prices of the year. That's $24,777 or $325 per month.
And finally, we have 2022 GMC Sierras with 0% APR for immediate delivery.
The Casa Buick GMC Slam Dunk Sales Event.
Swish!
Casa Buick GMC next to the airport, Montana at Airway.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. We are the El Paso History Radio Show over on Facebook as well, so you can go there for our weekly promo announcements on the topics of the program each week. We also have that channel over on YouTube, the El Paso History TV. You can find the El Paso Gold DVDs from Capstone Productions from the last couple of decades, now online for view for free. Again, El Paso History TV over on YouTube. Also, the 20 segments from our ABC7 TV series from El Paso History TV, all over there as well, including including by myself, but also featuring Bernie Sargent, and focused on those different segments of El Paso history that did air on ABC7 KBIA TV. Again, El Paso History TV over on YouTube. Also, a reminder to support our advertisers. Pepe's Restaurant in Canutillo is open for in-house dining, 6761 Donovan Drive. You can call Pepe at 877-2152. Get the 915 in there, 915-877-2152. Also, the home of the one and only margarita. I'll be heading out there today, and if you end up being able to come out here with us, Heribert von Feilitzsch joining us in studio here today, I'll buy you lunch as well.
Well, I'll come out for sure.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's the idea of that margarita, you know.
Absolutely. I need to try it myself there, actually. I consider it kind of being on the job when we're out there for the most part, so tend not to, but one of these days we'll absolutely do it here. But again, Heribert von Feilitzsch, Harry, to his friends, is joining us here again, and we are talking about Zach Cobb, who found himself, well, not exactly found, but definitely worked his way into being the customs inspector for the region. And when we're talking about customs inspector, what kind of an area did that encompass at that point in time?
Customs collector for El Paso, and so that was basically it extended, I suppose, to the area around Columbus, and you know, they were in Brownsville. There was another customs collector, and so there were different customs collectors. But don't forget, the El Paso Ciudad Juarez customs house was one of the biggest on the border. And I mean, in the Mexican Revolution, especially, you know, it's most of the supplies coming into Mexico, weapons by the tens of thousands, bullets by the millions. And then, of course, you also had the smelter here. You had a lot of exports. Pancho Villa stealing cattle in Mexico from the large ranches and bringing them over here and selling them. So that financed a lot of his campaign. So El Paso Customs House was definitely huge, and it was a super important job.
Yeah, hotbed of activity here. But something that may have been a little bit unclear is that we described as, you know, Zach Cobb coming to prominence out of this. And it's important in this case to actually mention his middle name here, Zach Cobb, because he wasn't actually he didn't just come out of obscurity into this position. He actually came from a well-connected background we were talking a little bit about.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tremendous. And you think about his family. So he's born in Georgia. So he comes from Athens, Georgia. His father was a judge, but he was also a delegate, a member of the House of Representatives in Georgia. His grandfather was 6 times member of Congress. He was Treasury Secretary at one point. Let's see what else. Solicitor General, Speaker of the House, and Major General in the Confederacy. So we're talking about at least in the state of Georgia, one of the most prominent families. And then on his mother's side, the Lamar side, this might be something that gives you a good connection to why did he come to Texas. His great-grandfather was president of the Republic of Texas, 1838 to 1841. It's a prominent family, prominent background. He certainly could be called political nobility, if you will. And so this is also, I think, why he went to law school. He graduated from Georgia and came here in 1901 and established a legal practice and became politically active. And, when the election of 1912 came about, he is one of the first people that founded a Wilson Club here in town.
Okay.
And Judge Goggin, who was a prominent judge here in town, he was the president of the Wilson Club. But Lamar considered himself the Wilson man of West Texas, and I suppose Wilson saw that as ringing true.
And definitely ended up delivering for him on that here. So establishing some of the bona fides and backgrounds here will actually take us into our next break. So coming out of this break, let's talk more about then what happened following that. Again, what it entailed. I mean, you touched on it there a bit, but there's so much more to get into what the actual impact of the customs inspector job was. And again, that foreign policy aspect and how then the Wilson administration made their decisions on it, all of that again swirls right through this area, which is why I love talking about it here. But we're going to go ahead and take that next break here on the El Paso History Radio Show. Coming back, we'll continue talking with Harry about all these subjects here, so stay tuned.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com. M1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549. 915-592-4549.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. It sure feels good to step into a warm car after letting it heat up for a few minutes. However, this practice wastes gas, increases emissions, and pollutes the air. Limit idling your car to no more than 3 minutes to save money at the gas station and improve air quality. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living, or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
New on Curiosity Stream.
This is going to see things that we couldn't imagine.
NASA's James Webb Space Telescope will absolutely blow your mind.
It's going to stare 13.5 billion years back in time.
It's the Curiosity original series, Secrets of the Universe. And from logs laid over a stream to the breathtaking Brooklyn Bridge, see mankind's mastery of physics on bridging the expanse. Watch now on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
Congratulations to all the winners from the iHeartRadio Music Awards. Because of everyone who got vaccinated, we were able to celebrate our favorite artists together live.
Shout out to all who got vaccinated and gotten their kids vaccinated.
So events like this are safer and just more enjoyable for all.
If you missed it, check out the Red Carpet Live presented by U.S. Department of Health and Human Services on iHeartRadio's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Thank you guys so much.
Get vaccinated, get boosted, and find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Americans don't trust big media. The source you can trust is Newsmax. Find it on all major cable systems or download the free Newsmax app on your phone. Millions are watching Newsmax and the Newsmax team with Rob Finnerty, Eric Bowling, Sean Spicer and Lindsay Keith, Greg Kelly, Stinchfield and Rob Schmidt, plus weekends with Huckabee, Diamond and Silk, Gorka and Wendy Bell. 20 million people have made the switch to Newsmax. Try it. You may never go back.
The uh-ohs are out there. Scratches, dents, unexpected natural events. But with Mako and their magic, your car is no longer tragic. So when life throws you uh-ohs, just say,
better get Mako.
And go to Mako.com to book your appointment today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
At the United States Postal Service, we deliver packages fast and affordably so you can give your customers what they want when they need it. We're delivering for one-stop shops, mom and pops, pop-ups, startups, retail, wholesale, large scale, small biz, big box, customers, customizers. So no matter what business you're in, we'll always be delivering for you. USPS, delivering for America. Learn more at USPS.com/delivering.
Your favorite radio station. Yeah, this one right here. And thousands more just like it are streaming on the free iHeartRadio app. And now you can talk to them with a single tap. Play any iHeartRadio station and tap the talkback mic on the screen to send your message in seconds. Ooh, and it's True Crime Week. Check our dangerously good lineup, including the new iHeart original podcast, What Happened to Sally Beale. Download the free iHeartRadio app today and discover music, radio, and podcasts you'll love.
iHeartRadio. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you again, folks, so much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Also want to mention some of the other partners and previous guests we've had here on the show. Of course, be sure to check out celebrationofourmountains.org. That's celebrationofourmountains.org for the many hikes and such that they have going on. If you missed the one out on this morning, they were heading out to Waco Tanks here. That you really wanted to register for ahead of time. But don't worry, they got a full schedule coming up, including this coming Thursday with the El Paso Mission Trail, Isleta Socorro, and the Tiguas with the El Paso Mission Trail Association. Also a San Lazario tour coming up in late April, plus the Chihuahuan Desert Nature Park on next Saturday. It was hosted by William Lukefar and Ryan Pemberton. So a lot of events going on over there. And again, we talked with them last week about much of the beautiful natural history of our area. And so for all of those kind of shows, you can find them over on our Facebook as well. But just be sure to find all the information on them, celebrationofourmountains.org being the place to do that. And also just a reminder, our friends at Monterey Asset Management have changed their name to M1EP Management Corporation. Their website, m1ep.com. That's M1ep.com. And find them at 915-592-4549. Again, the call to place, 915-592-4549 here. So still joined here in studio by Heribert von Feilitzsch, talking about another interesting character that had a lot of impact in our region and frankly then in world history when it came to the Mexican Revolution, Zach Cobb. And again, the makeup of his name there hinting at some of his history and how he came to be in the position he was with that 1912 election, to have the impact that it did on that 46th ballot, deciding then Wilson to come in and then ultimately ascending to the presidency. And then, of course, Wilson, an important figure in his own right in world history and in deciding, mostly talked about in reference to the isolationist practice, at least when I grew up, isolationist practices that were then shed in the entry into World War I. But, I mean, he was dealing with conflict right on his borders, not necessarily, hopefully not involving the United States, though we'll get to that in a minute as well, in the lead up to and in the involvement with the Mexican Revolution. And so that's why, among other things, Zach Cobb ended up becoming the customs inspector. I mean, again, the foreign policy implications, you say, that were much more prominent at that time, were kind of key to both Cobb himself and then what Wilson wanted and was needing from this kind of a position.
Yeah, I mean, maybe to set this in the context of the time. So, the Mexican Revolution started November 1910. By May 1911, revolutionary forces had ousted the dictator Porfirio Diaz. The critical battle in this was right here in Ciudad Juarez, when the Federals were defeated. And of course, some of the generals that were part of President Madero's forces was Pascual Orozco, later on very well known for his rebellion that again started from here. Then you have Pancho Villa, of course, being prominent, and many others. So in 1912, in this election year here in the United States, you have in Mexico actually a democratically elected government under Francisco Madero, and but the government is under siege. And what happened right in the beginning, in the fall of 1911 already, Bernardo Reyes, a Mexican general who wanted to unseat Madero first as a candidate for the presidency, but then he left in a huff. He went to San Antonio and began plotting to overthrow the Madero regime from the United States, from San Antonio, collecting supporters, collecting arms, even becoming very friendly with the Texas governor, who in a sense shielded him from being arrested. Finally, in the December time period, he is actually he's a wanted man. He flees over to Mexico, and the Mexican government arrests him, and he was jailed in Mexico City, to be continued a year later, because he is one of the conspirators that overthrew Francisco Madero. So again, like you said, Andrew, this is critical, this border area. This is where the outs were trying to get back in, right? And that's where recruitment and money was flowing, and of course, lots of smuggling. And as a customs collector, not just inspector, he was a collector of customs. He was directing basically the policies that would help or dismantle these movements. So 1912, the election happened in November. And what you had also in starting already in February 1912 was the Orozco Rebellion. Within a few months, he basically conquered entire Chihuahua. And if you remember, Ciudad Juarez, the Battle of Ciudad Juarez is what overthrew dictator Diaz. So you can imagine how critical a time period that was for the administration of Madero. Orozco basically in charge of Chihuahua, huge battles being fought. In this case, interestingly, the United States helped the Mexican government, the Mexican Secret Services operating here on this side, Felix Sommerfeld being the leader of the whole thing, to prevent Orozco from arming himself. So again, you can imagine how the Customs House played a role in this. They could hold deliveries of coal. They could, so for the railroads, they could hold deliveries of arms, munitions. Of course, lots of people here on this side were arrested for neutrality law violations. And so there was a lot going on. 1912 was a busy year right here at the border. And so then you have the election. Wilson becomes the first Democratic Party president for 16 years, in 16 years. And literally a week after or a week before he took, or just around when he became president, Francisco Madero was assassinated.
Oh.
So think about being thrown into the cold water here. I mean, not only did Wilson really have no experience with Mexico and had probably not thought very much about Mexico before this, but he becomes president in the middle of a coup d'etat. And one of the ambassador in Mexico City, Henry Lane Wilson, so one of his people in the State Department, was intricately involved in this overthrow of the Mexican government. So here you have Wilson and Bryan becoming, Wilson president, Bryan Secretary of State, taking over a State Department that was completely Republican. They distrusted thoroughly. And one of the chief officers here, the ambassador to Mexico City, is involved in overthrowing the only democratically elected government of Mexico.
So a little bit of a tinderbox, I guess, would be a mild way to put it.
Mild way, yeah. So they were really thrown into it, and again, you have to understand why he would, for example, bring one of his people into the customs collector's job, right? It's the same thing. He did not trust Henry Lane Wilson. So instead of using the State Department to figure out what's going on in Mexico and get the news of, the movements and so forth, he employed amateurs. He employed people that he knew. His friend William Bayard Hale being one of them. He was a journalist. He wrote Wilson's biography for the election campaign, and later actually became a German propagandist, of all things. But in this time period, he was a special envoy that Wilson sent to Mexico City to figure out what did Wilson really do here, Henry Lane Wilson being that, and how to assess the situation.
So, I mean, there was the complete seeming inability to really deal with what was happening in Mexico from a professional standpoint within this new administration coming in, them being just kind of blindsided by it. Like you said, a coup happening right to the south of your borders here. It makes things a little bit testy, to again put it mildly. And so he was trying to find any resources because he didn't trust the State Department, which is a wild concept to make.
It is, and the Taft administration might have recognized President Huerta, Victoriano Huerta, who was the one that overthrew the Madero administration. Wilson refused to do it, and that brought with it a complete change in how you enforce your neutrality laws. Because suddenly, if you don't recognize the official Mexican government, that also means the government can't import anything. You know what I mean? That now becomes smuggling, and so you have. Again, he put Cobb in place to enforce this complete change in policy. The Mexican government now was not recognized, and so at will, the U.S. government could hold things, could not allow equipment, things that were considered helping the army, for example. We always think of ammunition and guns, but they also arrested people for smuggling uniforms. And hats, underwear. I mean, whatever, canteens, whatever you can think of, they would find if they wanted to, they found a reason to not let that through. Now, here is the conundrum, though, because the resistance that sprung up when Huerta overthrew the Mexican government was called the Constitutionalists. So Venustiano Carranza, he was the governor of Coahuila, another border state. He declared himself in revolt. The same thing with Abraham Gonzalez, the governor of Chihuahua. His revolt didn't last very long. He was killed by the Federals within weeks of the assassination of Madero. But Carranza was very smart. He did assemble a coalition of resistance, Pancho Villa being one of them. Pancho Villa actually went into Mexico right down the street here from El Paso with 8 men and a few horses and a few guns. Within a year, he would return to the border at the head of 40,000 troops. So
quite the change in fortunes,
yeah. So, but if you think about the Constitutionalists, now the U.S. government is not recognizing the government, but is also legally not allowed to support the Carrancistas either. Does that make sense? Right? Because they're a revolutionary band, so they're violating the neutrality laws just as much as any other faction would. And so the direction from Washington that came down, which was very difficult to enforce for Cobb and also for the FBI that was down here, was kind of like, well, when you catch the Carrancistas smuggling something, just try to get some more information on it.
Do what you can.
Kind of slow walk it. Of course, yes, they're breaking the law. But so you see these court cases. Somebody gets arrested here for smuggling munitions, and the disposition of the court case is in 1916. So or they give them a small fine and let them go on their merry way. So you have a very, very difficult political situation, and a lot of people criticize Wilson's foreign policy because it was really wishy-washy at that time period. He didn't really know quite how to deal with this situation.
So again, when we're talking about Zach Cobb here, again, the picture we got up on screen right now, we are talking about him finding himself in this position where foreign policy and even foreign intelligence gathering was getting wrapped up in it because, among other things, by what you're letting through or not letting through, you can be effectively picking or supporting maybe winners and losers within parts of this conflict here. And then as a part of essentially, maybe not exactly explicitly, but tacitly a part of it, by the way, if you're talking with us, this might help what you're able to move or not. Is that essentially the case?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you know, Cobb has been accused of hating Pancho Villa and so forth. You know, you have to take this with a grain of salt. You see what a difficult situation he was in. And so what he was kind of trying to do is, number one, find information. Like you said, intelligence gathering was a very difficult proposition at that time. There was no real agency. We had some federal agents here in town. We had the FBI with a small f. It was a federal Bureau of Investigation, but not called the FBI at the time still.
Okay.
So you had a few agents here in town. You had also a few agents covering San Antonio and other parts of the border. So they had to also enforce neutrality laws. And so Cobb would cooperate with them. He would give them information that he learned. As part of his job, he, for example, had connections to Americans working in the railroads in Mexico. And so when they came to the border, he made it a point to have these people interviewed. And what did you see? What's going on there? What are the rumors? And he would pass a lot of really good intelligence on. And so he is in a time period where intelligence gathering becomes actually an important feature of the border that organized itself. So Cobb is in that sense also a pioneer. We can spend much more time on his activities than as a secret agent, but he pioneered cooperation between different departments of the government and aligning intelligence to really allow the government to make smart decisions.
All right, we got to take that next break right now, but we're coming back. We'll talk more about this, what exactly kind of intelligence was needing to be gathered, and again, the impact this had on some very notable names in the area here. So again, you're tuned in here to the El Paso History Radio Show. We do have a phone line if anyone wants to drop us a line here. The number to call there is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more of the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home, and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
I feel like I'm being haunted by a pair of headphones. Everywhere I go is a creepy ad for headphones I looked at one time. I hate that feeling like I'm being watched. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Whatever you're feeling, whatever you're going through, it's real and it matters. Anxious, sad, numb, lonely, frustrated, or empty. Whether you're dealing with bullying or feeling depressed, you don't have to do it alone. If you or someone you know needs support, reaching out for help is a strong thing to do. Text START to 741-741 to reach a volunteer crisis counselor at Crisis Text Line. It's 24/7, free and private. Help is just a text away.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thanks again here for tuning in to the El Paso History Radio Show. I just want to mention some of our other partners on this program. Rick Kern's music podcast, Talk and Rock Radio, about some of the, music history and such of the region and beyond. Go to talkandrockradio.com to see him and what he is doing there. Also, 915-588-1850 for Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker, Heritage Real Estate. Patrick is an excellent realtor to go to for El Paso homes for sale or rent. That's 588-1850 here. So a brief segment that we got here, again, still joined in studio by Heribert von Feilitzsch, an independent scholar and author historian about all of this here. So we're talking about Zach Cobb here, and we were touching a little bit on his inciting incident, I guess, would be from being a customs inspector, political appointee, to having to get more information out about what the circumstances were, and that would lead eventually to a further transformation into, well, nascent, I guess, political and informational agent there. But a couple of comments have come in as well. I want to touch on Keith Weldon saying, didn't help that intel sources were unusually unreliable. Same general spotted in a dozen different locations at the same time here. I mean, a lot of issues would come out of that, I can only imagine. And also, just a couple of comments here. Michelle Schieser, I'm not saying that. Schieser, there we go. Good morning, El Paso, the place of my childhood, now living in Fredericksburg, Virginia here. So, and Rick Nahara and Miguelino Salas are also tuning in with us. So we'll get to more of those comments and such, but also, again, going to be talking further with Harry about more of these aspects of our history after this break. So stick around with us, Harry, please.
Absolutely.
And we're back after this break with more.
Thank you for listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. There's another hour to go, so please stay tuned. This hour is brought to you by Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita. By Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. We'll be right back after the news, right here on News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Attention taxpayers, billions of dollars in savings is up for grabs for those struggling with back taxes to the IRS. The Fresh Start and tax relief initiatives have paved the way for Americans with back taxes or unfiled returns to find the tax relief that they need. If you're facing liens, levies, audits, wage garnishment, or already in a payment plan, you may qualify to have a large portion of what you owe eliminated. Those who qualify and enroll can finally resolve delinquent tax problems and end all collections. A tax relief hotline at Community Tax has been established for you to call at 800-375-2830. When you call, you'll receive a free tax assessment to let you know your options and what savings you qualify for. With rising inflation and economic uncertainty, relief for taxpayers has never come at a better time. Call now and see what you qualify for by dialing 800-375-2830. 800-375-2830. That's 800-375-2830.
New on Curiosity Stream.
One small step for man.
Hear the untold story of how the first mission to the moon almost ended in disaster.
Without that circuit breaker, they simply couldn't launch. If Armstrong and Aldrin weren't able to come home, how do you handle that as a nation?
On 1 hour that changed the world. And AI can think like us and act like us, but how close is it to replacing us? Find out on Becoming Human. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
As the country bounces back from COVID and mask mandates are lifted, your business needs a lift too. Promote your company right here, right now. Radio ads connect with 93% of Americans every week. That's more than Google, more than Facebook, more than TV. In fact, radio reaches 20% more millennials than TV. Want more of the people you want to talk to all in one place? Visit iHeartAdvertising.com and get AM and FM working for you. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Julie Ryan. President Biden is meeting with Ukrainian refugees in Poland ahead of his major speech today on the Russian war in Ukraine. Biden visited the huge camp at a stadium in Warsaw. That's a temporary home to thousands of Ukrainians who fled their homeland. President Biden reflected on his own personal experience.
I remember what it's like when you have someone in a war zone. Every morning you get up and you wonder. You just wonder, you pray you don't get that phone call.
Earlier, Biden wrapped up a meeting with Polish President Andrzej Duda, in which Biden called for NATO unity in the face of Russian aggression. An ambulance blessed and donated by Pope Francis is on its way to Ukraine. According to the Holy See press office, the vehicle will provide relief in Lviv. The western city has seen a steady influx of displaced Ukrainians arriving from the east. The donation follows strong criticism from the Pope Thursday, where he described the ongoing Russian invasion as madness. The Utah legislature is overriding a veto and reinstating a ban on transgender athletes participating in school sports. Both the Utah House and Senate voted to reverse a decision from Republican Governor Spencer Cox to veto the measure. Several groups, including the ACLU, have already promised to challenge the new law. Gas prices now top $6 a gallon in Southern California. AAA says drivers in Los Angeles County are currently paying a record average of $6.07 for a gallon of self-serve regular. LeBron James may not win another NBA title this year, but he did win a Razzie. The Lakers star was named Worst Actor for his role in the live-action animated feature Space Jam: A New Legacy. Space Jam was also named Worst Remake, Ripoff, or Sequel. However, this year's big Razzies champ was Netflix's Diana, the musical. The filmed stage show earned a leading 5 Golden Raspberry statuettes, including Worst Picture and Worst Screenplay. You're listening to the latest on NBC News Radio.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. As we get into this weekend, boy, it's about to get toasty around here. In fact, toasty enough for possible record warm. By next week, though, we will see another drop in temperature just slightly below the average, but we'll also see an increase in winds and rain chances.
The True Crime Podcast, What Happened to Sandy Beale, investigates the alarming death of a young woman who dreamed of a career in law enforcement. Journalist Melissa Jeltsin untangles the mystery at the heart of the investigation, revealing a troubling pattern by officials close to the case.
I didn't take any of their crap because I could tell that they were hiding something.
Listen to What Happened to Sandy Beale on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down in your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina, El Paso, El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus DTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Congratulations to all the winners from the iHeartRadio Music Awards. Because of everyone who got vaccinated, we were able to celebrate our favorite artists together live.
Shout out to all who got vaccinated and gotten their kids vaccinated.
So events like this are safer and just more enjoyable for all. If you missed it, check out the Red Carpet Live presented by U.S. Department of Health and Human Services on iHeartRadio's Facebook and YouTube channel.
Thank you guys so much.
Get vaccinated, get boosted, and find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690, KTSM, an iHeart radio station.
It only takes a minute to find out if you may have prediabetes, and you can do it at doihaveprediabetes.org. But you're probably not going to, are you? Kids, work, listening to the radio. You're busy, which is great because busy people can't get prediabetes. Oh my, I read that wrong. They can. Should have worn my glasses. So visit doihaveprediabetes.org and take a short test, because prediabetes can be reversed.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
News Radio 690, KTSM El Paso.
News Radio 690 KTSM presents the second hour of the El Paso History Radio Show with your host, Andrew J. Polk, streaming live at ktsmradio.com. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and only Margarita. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, for El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. And now El Paso History with your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to the El Paso radio show, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. We're going to be starting here hour 2 of the El Paso History Radio Show with a history moment from documentary filmmaker Jackson Polk about the Mexican Revolution refugees in El Paso here. We are, of course, joined here in studio by Heribert von Feilitzsch, Harry von Feilitzsch, talking about some of these aspects. So, I mean, all of this stuff that we've talked about around the Mexican Revolution had a lot of impacts here, but even just in the population of the area. So here is that history moment.
The Mexican Revolution broke out in November 1910. In 1911, Mexico went through the motions of another presidential election. The incumbent, Porfirio Diaz, who was first elected in 1876, was defeated by revolutionary Francisco Madero, campaigning on a platform of reforms. At first, Diaz had dismissed Madero's chances, but then imprisoned him as he gained popular support. The Mexican Revolution was an outgrowth of the resentment that had built up during Diaz's 34-year regime. The first Battle of Ciudad Juarez took place in April and May of 1911 between federal forces loyal to President Diaz and rebel forces of Madero, led by Pancho Villa. Residents of Juarez were caught up in the fighting, and a flood of refugees inundated the state of Texas. Thousands crossed the border into El Paso, which became a sanctuary for people fleeing the revolution. Those who could afford it often settled in El Paso's Sunset Heights, and the poorer families populated South El Paso along the border. Today, thousands of El Paso families trace their history to Mexico around the time of the revolution, and often talk of their grandfathers and great-grandfathers who rode with Pancho Villa or fought against him. I'm Jackson Polk with a history moment for the El Paso History Radio Show.
And that history, of course, is something that we help share along with the help of some of our partners here, including Barbara Given-Bainey, who is the operator of the great Facebook group Remember in El Paso When, which we should be up over there live right now, unless something went wrong. Go for the archive pictures galore, over 33,000 members. But please remember, the administrators have worked hard in researching photos with the history that is attached to it and important to our region. So when using other of their photos, they ask that credit be given to the site. Of course, Chief Admin and Owner and Historian Barbara Given-Bainey, better known as BGB. Also admins Rick Duncan, Rick Nahara, Margaret D. Smith, historian, and Paul Louie, and moderators Ben Vincent and Ken Weiss. We thank them for their work because helping people get involved with and understand our history might just be ever so slightly important to us here on this program as well. We also have, again, Barbara Given-Bainey liking that moment there, and Keith Wilden letting us know he's out on the road. A lot of comments coming in over on the social media, but again, joined here in studio by Harry von Feilitzsch, talking about some of it here. And yeah, that complicated history, as mentioned there in the history moment, of a lot of these individuals. I mean, depending on the person that you talked to, Pancho Villa Mexican Revolution. You can be a hero or a villain, or sometimes both within a single family.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you also have shifting alliances. Don't forget
Oh,
that.
that's very true.
Yesterday's Maderista is today's Villista, is tomorrow's Orozquista, is the day after tomorrow, who knows what. So talking about finding intelligence on people, it's really funny how, when you read intelligence reports, how they say, well, this guy, he worked for Orozco, but now he works for Pancho Villa, and now he works for Felix Diaz, and now he works for, so there are these people that constantly change alliances, maybe not necessarily based on ideology, but some other evaluation of
financial gain, importance, prominence, power, all of these things. I mean, corruption is a very live thing here. So we have been talking about the figure up on screen now here of Zach Lamar Cobb and the position he found himself in out of that election of 1912 as the customs inspector and collector for this region, and then the political and intelligence implications about that. So speaking of transformations, we were seeing him be moved from a otherwise, political appointee in a position that was already pretty contentious because of the revolution that was already going on in the area, but then becoming more and more into the intelligence aspects of it. So his own kind of personal transformation as a part of this.
Yeah, and this is really, when we consider, again, the Wilson administration came in unprepared to not knowing much about Mexico, so here's this man coming in the course of 1913. I think it took him until October or whatever to take over this job, and the place was a mess, and intelligence was scanned. And like I said earlier, the Wilson administration didn't trust their own State Department. So you had these, there were basically 11 special envoys that Wilson used over time. We mentioned William Byard Hale. There were people like George C. Carruthers. So he was a former consul. Somehow he got onto the good side of the State Department, so they liked him, trusted him. Very interesting guy, business guy. Has been ravaged in history with accusations of corruption, and a lot of that was political intrigue, I think, more than actual corruption. So Carruthers is appointed as the special envoy to Pancho Villa. Right, so
direct to Pancho Villa, yeah.
So imagine, here are these factions. We don't really know exactly, what standing they have in Mexico, and so intelligence gathering happened through these special envoys. So this is how the State Department, how Wilson and Bryan actually got information from these guys, and so Carruthers. You had others that went to Veracruz, for example. So there are lots of American ships. You can send your information back. Of course, you had special envoys in Mexico City. But here you have this guy traveling with Pancho Villa through through northern Mexico. Communication not reliable, and just to show you how important Pancho Villa considered this guy, he gave him his own private rail car. Yeah, so if you imagine imagine Pancho Villa going into battle, there's his rail car where he and his Dorados traveled, and then behind it is one other rail car, and that was Mr. Carruthers, and he was basically Pancho Villa's direct line to President Wilson, who he considered his friend. Until a few years later.
But at that time, again, shifting alliances being mentioned. Again, spoiler alert if you're not familiar with the history here, because the shifting and the perceived betrayals. I mean, you may have remembered or heard about some very other contentious and deadly moments that happened on U.S. soil involving Pancho Villa, and so it's very interesting to then hear about them. Oh yeah, the personal friend and direct line to him. I mean, again, how fortunes change is a fascinating aspect of this bit of history. But so then Zach Lamar Cobb coming into it, going more of that than intelligence, I guess maybe not asset, but conduit for this.
Exactly. So here is Carruthers in the countryside in the middle of the revolution. And so he actually appeals to the State Department to allow Cobb to relate messages from him to Washington. And so this is kind of his Cobb's first almost official part in relaying intelligence information to Washington, and obviously he's very good at it, but he also becomes fascinated by it. I mean, this is something that really, was interesting to him. Like I said earlier, as customs collector, he had contact to railroad employees in Mexico.
Right.
Of course, he was part of the arrests and seizure of stuff. So he met a lot of people also in the El Paso area that gave him information about Mexico that might have been revolutionary activists and so forth. And so Cobb really sees now these reports from Carruthers, and he adds to them. He finds more information, and so the State Department by 1914 is kind of looking at Cobb and go, well, he's really important. Like I said earlier, Andrew, collecting intelligence was not so easy here.
Yeah.
You had no formal agency. It was long before an OSS or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You had an FBI. Those guys did a really good job for what they could do. So they did a lot of investigation within the country. Only later they also had some foreign agents, but at that 1913, 1914 time period, most of them were literally just along the border doing investigations, trying to bring prosecutions, which almost always were frustrated by local courts, cases dismissed by the hundreds, because I think locals didn't really want the federal government to mingle in their business. And so on principle, if it went to a jury trial, even Orozco was actually on trial at one point, and they couldn't do anything with him. So you can see how a lot of effort is spent on stuff that wasn't effective, and so here's Cobb who says, "Wait a minute, I can hire some more informants, some more agents, and bring good information to Washington," and that's what he did.
I mean, again, at the point, it bears mentioning just from the modern standpoint that, no satellites, no drones, no planes. I mean, we saw some of the first planes come through this region around that time here. So that started coming through. But radio was also in its infancy, not doing a whole lot of communications. Sure, telegraphs and those kind of things, but even wiremen weren't even really a consideration there. So it was all what is now referred to as human intelligence. It took people, it took talking to people, knowing people, having people tell you things to get this done. And so if you don't have that network in place, you're kind of up a specific creek without a paddle.
Exactly. And, you were mentioning the different means of communication. The telegraph was really the only, that these things ran across along the railroads. And, the telegraph was not a safe way to communicate.
No, anyone could literally tap into it, the original wiretap, and know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. So there's actually a funny story. The FBI and also the U.S. military later on hired Japanese Americans and Japanese Mexicans, and they transmitted messages in Japanese. So that way, it's a little harder to decipher. Yeah. So the telegraph. Of course, they had codes. It's interesting that it took over a year of Cobb collecting intelligence and passing it on that they actually gave him a secret code. So he didn't even have that until a year into this.
Wow.
So the telegraph lines were not considered secure, and also, of course, they were cut all the time. So as the battles were happening, that was one of the first things that that revolutionary bands would do, is cut the telegraph lines, blow up the railroad bridge, and see what happens next, right? So that it's also not a secure communication in that aspect.
So we saw Cobb coming into this position, getting increasingly involved within the intelligence, I hesitate to say community, because it was a few people that then grew in size as they developed these networks here. But there were, even before really came to be involved much otherwise with Pancho Villa, some significant arrests that happened through the area that really in their own way altered the course of the conflict.
Yeah. So let's go into 1915. We mentioned earlier the dictator that killed and overthrew Francisco Madero, Victoriano Huerta. He became president, but the U.S. government did not recognize him as such. And then we see this huge resistance to his coup called the Constitutionalists. Including Pancho Villa's forces and Obregón and all the big names that we know. they are fighting the federal government led by Huerta throughout 1914. And they finally defeat him actually in the summer of 1914, just before World War I started. Huerta is actually defeated, has to flee, goes on a German ship of all things, of course, to Europe, giving rumor to the fact that somehow the German government was supporting it, which is not something that I could ever find proof of. So anyway, so he goes to Spain, and with some of his generals and a large family, 35 people were in in his entourage, and so he sits there and he's kind of like thinking things over, and didn't take long that he decided he wants to go back into Mexico. And so what he does is, in the spring of 1915, in April, he suddenly shows up in New York.
We have that picture here of him arriving there. I believe he's the one in the middle there with the nicer hat.
Yeah, so yeah, you have Huerta in the middle, and you have his personal secretary Delgado on the left side, and on the other side is a man named Abraham Ratner, and Ratner was his business partner and also the main supplier of arms in his uprising that was about to happen now. So he comes to New York, and of course everybody's curious, is what is he doing there?
A lot of questions.
World War I is raging. So some voices are saying, oh my God, the Germans are helping him out. He brings a lot of money with him. I finally did find out the source of the money. So in the Zimmerman telegram by Barbara Tuchman, she said that this was all German money. It's not at all German money. It was actually his own money. Own in apostrophes, because he when he left on this German ship, I found a message from the captain to the German Navy Department. And he said that the guy had boxes of gold and stocks and treasuries, and
all perfectly legitimate,
so he had
I'm
millions,
sure.
at his disposal, and so he brought that to bear now on his campaign to make it back into power in Mexico.
So we'll have to stop there for a second here, because we are overdue for that next break here. So we are again talking with Heribert von Feilitzsch, independent scholar, author, and historian, talking about all the circumstances and the fascinating individuals that came through our area through the lens of Zach Cobb, customs collector, and eventually, as you put it, special agent here. And we'll talk about his intersection with Huerta and more here in just a second, but we got to take that next break right now. So coming back out of that, we'll get into that here. We'll take some comments or calls here as well. William Henry May saying this is fascinating about Carruthers and him traveling with Pancho Villa, then how it communicated with President Wilson. So no wonder how Blackjack Pershing and George Patton played cards with Pancho Villa. I mean, yeah, the amount of weird stuff that happened in this area abounds once you get to this history, and surprising situations that, if you look at it from the end of history, from where we stand, like, how'd that happen that way? But at the point in time, they were buddies at one point. Anyway, but we'll get into more of that here. We will take a phone call if you want to place one to us. The number to call there, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more of the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
If you're drowning in IRS debt and can't afford to pay, then you need to take advantage of special IRS tax programs that are available and free yourself from IRS collection efforts once and for all. Due to the financial hardship consumers are facing throughout the country, the Internal Revenue Service has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Take down this number or store it in your cell phone, but call the Community Tax Helpline at 800-461-8937. If you owe all back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back, or even if you have years of unfiled tax returns, there's no need to fear anymore. But you have to call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-461-8937 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-461-8937 for your free consultation and to see if you qualify. That's 800-461-8937.
New on Curiosity Stream.
That's one small step for man.
Hear the untold story of how the first mission to the moon almost ended in disaster.
Without that circuit breaker, they simply couldn't launch. If Armstrong and Aldrin weren't able to come home, how do you handle that as a nation?
On 1 hour that changed the world. And AI can think like us and act like us, but how close is it to replacing us? Find out on Becoming Human. It's all on Curiosity Stream. Annual plans are $20, just $1.67 a month. Visit curiositystream.com.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
If you're with Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile, join the flood of people switching to Pure Talk. The average family saves over $800 a year by switching. Get unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. Or if you still want unlimited data, you can get that and still save a fortune. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say, switch now, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say, switch now.
Sweetie, want some fruit? You have to use the right tool for the job. A power drill is the wrong tool to slice fruit. Just like an antibiotic is the wrong tool to treat viruses, including colds and flu. Antibiotics are only needed for certain bacterial infections. When they aren't needed, antibiotics won't help you, and the side effects could still hurt you. Ask your healthcare professional when an antibiotic is the right tool and when it's not. Visit cdc.gov/antibiotic-use.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
A couple more things to tell you about here. Of course, coming in next week, we are going to be joined by Judd Burgess, owner of Brave Books, to talk about the Natalicio collection, that being the body of work, different publications, books, arts, that kind of a thing, that were bought in whole from the Natalicio estate and now going to be available for purchase, already going on, but also a number of items there being kept for permanent exhibition and a rotating exhibition, along with more work with other historians and local authors over there at the bookstore with Brave Books, along with some clips that we will be pulling for what is going on there with the last interview that we had with Dr. Natalicio. So that's what's coming in next week. So stay tuned for that one. Also, sponsor remind you about Mission Del Rey Southwest. Go there with your out-of-town visitors for souvenir, jewelry, gifts, and decor. Talked with him over there this week. Have a lot more of interesting things coming in, more local products as well. So it's a great place to take up, got people coming in, and people maybe coming in for Easter, and to take to people who want things to remind them of the area or things to show off what we have in the area. So that's a very good way to do it there. Again, you can find them at missiondelrey.com, or again, visit their 12,000 square foot showroom on Lee Trevino. I mentioned the El Paso History Radio Show for a discount. And again, the number to call them at 915-440-2140. That's 915-440-2140. Again, joined here in studio, as we have been this hour, by Heribert von Feilitzsch, independent scholar, author, and historian, talking about one of the many fascinating characters that a lot of stories swirl around when it comes to the Mexican Revolution era, within the borderland region, that of Zach Cobb. So right before the break, we were getting to some of the, an impending incident that he was looking at with, or he would be involved in as one of many figures when we're talking about Huerta moving around, escaping Mexico, going to Europe, and then showing back up in New York, as we actually have the picture of here. So take it from there, Harry.
Yeah. So, the big question was, of course, why did Huerta come back? Now, he said it's a pleasure trip. He just loves the United States. And he stayed in town first, but then he rented a really nice house in just on the island, and received lots of guests. I think his entourage there was somewhere around 60 people.
Oh, wow.
So talking about a big family. And among the visitors were, for example, the German military attaché and the German naval attaché that raised some eyebrows. The FBI was watching them, of course, closely. And then there was the visit of Franz Rinthalen. He's actually a sabotage agent that supposedly had visited Huerta in Spain before. So Barbara Tuchman, for example, thought that maybe he was instigating this whole thing. As I found out in my research, it was actually only partially true, because Rinthalen became rogue and got himself involved with Huerta, and as a result, the German government actually published his name, got him arrested by the Brits, and he ended up in prison. So he was a rogue agent. So anyway, so here he is on a pleasure trip, renting a house, says, hey, you know what, I would like to stay here, really like America. And the U.S. government is watching this, and they're going like, something is up here. Cobb at the border, so talking again about this link between El Paso and national history here, Cobb at the border reports back, it's like, I see more and more weapons coming into town. So there's munitions, there's carloads of munitions. The BI, so the Bureau of Investigation, also finds lots of evidence that they're building something up. And at one point, the BI actually watched Pascual Orozco, the guy that ran the rebellion against Madero in 1912. He shows up at Huerta's place in New York.
Yeah, I think we have a picture of them embracing at one point right here.
Yeah, that embrace. Don't know exactly where that might have been in New York, that picture. Of course, there's later an embrace at the border here, which we'll talk about in a second, which was probably the last time they embraced. So anyway, they watched Huerta closely, and rumors were rampant that he would try an incursion into Mexico. That would be a violation of the neutrality laws, of course. And so the U.S. really wanted to prevent this, and they were on high alert. And so suddenly, a month after he arrived, he says, oh, I would love to go to San Francisco to the World Exhibition. And so he announced that he would take a train ride through the United States and go to San Francisco. Well, Felix Sommerfeld, the agent that I wrote my 2 books about, he also was watching Huerta, of course, because he was Pancho Villa's purchasing agent. He surely didn't want Huerta to go into Mexico.
It would have thrown a wrench in a lot of plans here, and so that's where we end up with a specific incident we want to focus happening here right next to the border, right?
Yeah, because so Sommerfeld finds out that Huerta was not going to San Francisco, that he actually would change trains in Kansas City and then take a train down to El Paso. And so this information was confirmed by other agencies, and so Cobb received the message that Huerta was going to come down here on his way from Kansas City. So Cobb's information then, so he listened around town what people knew and so forth. And so he found out that Huerta's plan was actually to stop in Newman, New Mexico. So it was a tiny little, I don't even know, do you know Newman?
I have never been there, no.
Okay, I don't know if there's much there. It seems to be just like a watering station or something. But anyway, so there's a little train station in New Mexico, right at the border to Texas. And that's where Huerta supposedly would get off the train and make his way into Mexico. So Cobb assembled a team to intercept Huerta, so that he had some deputy U.S. Marshals, he had federal agents from the BI, and of course himself, and some soldiers, and they went up to Newman. And here's a big issue. These guys were Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Newman is in New Mexico. So how can you arrest somebody as a Texas law enforcement in New Mexico, right? So it was a conundrum, right? So here is the train approaching. When the guys actually got to Newman, they found in the bushes, hidden in the bushes, they found Orozco.
Oh my!
He was part of the welcoming committee, so he was in the bushes, and then Huerta arrived, and so there are two versions of what happened next. One version is that they never arrested Huerta, but they simply waited for Orozco to greet him, and then they asked him to follow them into El Paso, and Huerta complied. That's one theory. The other theory, which I think is probably the truth, is that Cobb actually convinced the guy driving the engine to move the train 100 yards, which took it into Texas, and then they could arrest everybody.
And looking at the map here, a quick Google search shows that Newman might be right near that bend in US 54, right? What would more commonly known now as close to Chaparral. But right there near the edge of Texas Steakhouse and Saloon is where that might be very, very, very close to here, which, the rail lines also come very close to still, of course.
Yeah, so we should probably put up a marker for Cobb there, because that's one of his signature achievements in his career as customs collector, is the arrest of Huerta. So what happens next is they pack Huerta and Orozco into their cars. They're driving to El Paso. One argument that Huerta might not have been under arrest at the time, but followed voluntarily, was that they stopped at the El Paso Country Club for refreshments. I'm not making this up.
Wow.
So Huerta got himself a drink. As people that have followed the story of Huerta, he liked to drink. He would consume copious amounts of cognac starting in the morning. And so he probably got the shakes, and they had to stop at the country club.
Oh, that kind of a drink. Absolutely here. And Steve Ivey correcting us here that there is a private prison there, maybe a little bit more famous these days here. But tell you what, we are well overdue for that next break here. So we have gotten to Zach Cobb making the arrest, one of the first, major political moves he does outside of just the intelligence gathering here. But we'll talk more about that and eventually how we lead to the downfall of Pancho Villa. Cram that in for the rest of this hour here. So Otero County, he corrected himself there, Steve did. But we got to take that next break right now. Coming back, we'll get to more of this and hear more with the El Paso History Radio Show on News Radio 690 KTSM.
M1 EP Management Corporation is proud to sponsor the El Paso History Show. If you're tired of the ups and downs of the stock market, invest in real estate. M1 EP manages apartments in El Paso and helps investors buy, hold, and sell property. See the website, m1ep.com. M1ep.com. To learn more about the many benefits and long-term appreciation of investing in real estate, call 915-592-4549. 915-592-4549.
El Paso History TV is now available for free on YouTube.com. Take a look at recent ABC 7 news reports by Bernie Sargent on El Paso History TV about Waco tanks, the Franklin Mountains, Concordia Cemetery, and more. The YouTube channel also has more than 100 videos about El Paso history with lectures, documentaries, and various history clips. Go to youtube.com/El Paso History TV and find out how Texas history begins in El Paso.
iHeartRadio Earth knows small changes can make a big difference. Want to reduce your food waste? Embrace your freezer. From bread to meat and even cheese, most foods can be frozen and cooked later. Plus, a full freezer uses less electricity. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram Truck Months and and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer, full-size SUV with third-row seating. 2022 Ram trucks with 0 APR for 72 months. 0 down, 0 payments for 90 days. Upside down on your trade? We want it. Even if you owe thousands more than it's worth, we've partnered with even more aggressive lenders with great rates and terms for good credit, or even if your credit is less than perfect. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Southern Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying your truck is fun. At I-10 at Southern Park Drive or online at southernparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina en Paso, El Paso Strong. Excludes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 0 APRs, $13.89 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hey, spring is here, and the warmer weather means you've got a lot more going on. Don't let COVID get in the way of any of it. COVID vaccines offer the strongest possible protection now and from long-term side effects in the future. Protect yourself and your plans. We can do this. Find vaccines near you at vaccines.gov. That's vaccines.gov. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
So the dream was to build your very own law practice. Be your own boss, call all the shots. But have things like billing, HR, timekeeping, and all the other management stuff turned your dream into a nightmare? Take charge of your practice with Lexicon. We're the intersection of practice management software and legal support services for your firm. You'll get more billable and livable hours back. Lexicon marks the spot for all your practice management needs. Visit lexiconservices.com/intersection to get the whole story or schedule a demo.
Americans don't trust big media. The source you can trust is Newsmax. Find it on all major cable systems or download the free Newsmax app on your phone. Millions are watching Newsmax and the Newsmax team with Rob Finnerty, Eric Bowling, Sean Spicer and Lindsey Keith, Greg Kelly, Stinchfield and Rob Schmidt, plus weekends with Huckabee, Diamond and Silk, Gorka and Wendy Bell. 20 million people have made the switch to Newsmax. Try it. You may never go back.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show. This week, only in El Paso Inc. While staff shortages continue, many workers are using this time as an opportunity to become the boss. An El Paso native was confirmed by the Senate last week to be a federal judge in Nevada. A familiar El Paso figure in El Paso hat, a cowboy hat and boots, looks back on his time in the borderland as he prepares for a move. Probably a familiar name to many people here who have listened to the show. El Paso's business journal, El Paso Inc., is available for home or business delivery and online at elpasoinc.com. To receive El Paso Inc., order it online at elpasoinc.com here. Again, joined here in studio by Heribert von Feilitzsch, independent scholar, author, and historian, and talking about specifically today the historian of one Zach Cobb, who is an interesting figure. And through so much of what happens in El Paso history, just the confluences of time, place, position, politics, intelligence in this case, as we saw Cobb increasingly move from political activist and appointee to an intelligence position, leading to, as we got to right before the break, the arrest of a would-be recombatant within the Mexican Revolution here. So serious impact, easily said.
Serious impact. And I mean, he undid the whole thing. So literally that failed. And Huerta ended up dying in Fort Bliss. You know, I mean, he of liver cirrhosis, by the way. So the cognac finally caught up with
so
him.
Definitely the drinking there. So
yeah.
he was then in El Paso for the duration of his life there. So, and it would have seemed, I mean, people may be thinking from the start of the program, the way we talked about some of this some of this series of events and the way it came out, that this may have seemed like everything's coming up, coming up heads for Pancho Villa. Then he has got one of his major potential rivals, people who were looking to enter the conflict, out of his way. He's got a pretty cozy relationship with the U.S. government, with a direct envoy directly to the president from him. So it may have seemed like he was in a good position, but again, how quickly fortunes change.
Yeah. So in 1915, he loses some major battles against Obregon, who worked for Carranza. And so by the fall, the U.S. government actually recognized Carranza as the de facto president of Mexico. And that really rubbed Pancho Villa the wrong way. So he thought that something untoward might have happened, that maybe Carranza gave away the sovereignty of Mexico and let the Americans take over customs houses and the Magdalena Bay naval station and so forth. So like you said, here again is a major shift in U.S. policy from one that seeks to have a unity government to suddenly recognizing Carranza just because militarily he's the most successful faction in Mexico. And again, here's Zach Cobb at the border, as well as the federal agents working here that are, basically realigning their enforcement of the law based on the foreign policy literally turning 180 on them.
And so in that specific case, I mean, he was the literal functionary being put into place to put then this, essentially foreign policy in action. And then this was what brings us to the stash house.
Exactly. Yeah. So by October, Pancho Villa Carranza is recognized as the de facto president. And Cobb immediately, I mean, we're talking within days of that declaration, immediately shuts off all deliveries to the Villistas. So coal, munitions, like I said, uniforms, blankets, whatever came across the border, he stopped it dead cold. Also would not allow the Villistas to export cattle to the U.S. Remember, that was one of their major sources of income.
So cutting them off, coming and going.
And so there's a big question, actually, if in this particular incident, he actually acted on instructions or whether he acted and then the instructions kind of matched what he did. So this is because there's an immediate reaction here, incredibly efficient. I mean, the Villa was done with. I mean, it took another month to disband the Division of the North. And like you said, November 15th, 1915, the stash house was raided, $500,000 in cash are found, and $30,000 worth of jewelry. That money came most likely from the dissolution of the Division of the North. They sold off in Ciudad Juarez whatever they still had, the Villas. And then we get into the spring of 1916. At this point, the general idea is that Villa is gone, that he's basically playing no more role in this. Cobb was one of the lone voices, based on his intelligence gathering, that said, don't count him out yet. He heard rumors that, for example, Villa is trying to attack the United States, and he transmits that to the United States, to the State Department.
Yeah, so I mean, the Columbus raid, that celebration, that anniversary that just came up here recently in March here, a significant event, one of in the mainland United States only attacks that can be pointed to outside of the incursions and random attacks that happened on the coast during World War II. But this was not something that came out of the blue. And interesting comment coming also from Keith Wilden. Have to remember, Villa never wanted the presidential chair for himself. He was looking for another Madero. Carranza was no Madero. And the conflict between them bears that out here. But so Cobb, in his intelligence role, then was very much coming into, okay, we're hearing a lot of things coming around. And so it was an intelligence failure in a variety of ways that the Columbus raid even happened.
Yeah. So you have to give credit to Cobb for anticipating actually this attack. So he writes already in January, I don't know, I hear rumors that Villa wants to come to the border. He might attack the United States. The other idea was he might also just give himself up and retire in the United States. So that was another idea of why he was coming to the border, and Cobb also transmits that as part of his intelligence. But he became increasingly concerned. He had a source, there was a railroad employee in Chihuahua, that basically told him he had 450 people lined up. They were heavily armed, and they're marching towards the border. And now, of course, the big question is, why would you need 450 people to give yourself up?
Yeah,
Right?
not exactly how that works
Yeah.
usually.
And so in the days before Columbus, he writes urgent telegrams to the State Department and goes like, I have information. He is only half a day away. He's got 450 people. He is marching onto Columbus. There are rumors that he's going to attack Columbus. He writes that. And so this intelligence, first of all, to his credit, incredibly accurate.
Right, yeah.
And now in hindsight, we can see how if, for example, Colonel Slocum would have taken this advice, he did have advice of this intelligence. He didn't quite believe it. But if he would have, and they would have put up some more guards and maybe fortified the garrison a little bit, then the outcome of this raid would have been much different.
I mean, it could have been almost stopped, or heck, Pancho Villa could have been, his forces decimated or removed entirely, himself captured, or even possibly himself killed. I mean, if there had been an actual response to this intelligence. I mean, it baffles the mind what could have happened if someone had acted.
Or it might have kept him from actually attacking. Remember, he had spies on the other side of the border too, so he would have heard. His first plan of attack was actually El Paso.
Wow.
That is something that most people don't know. But he had decided to attack El Paso, and his generals. And my writing partner and I would kind of laugh about this. He had a meeting at the Hacienda de Bustillos in December, and he was surrounded by 28 generals, and we were trying to add up how many soldiers per general did he have at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Something like 2, I don't know. But
That's
anyway,
true.
so he had 28 generals, and they talked him out of it. Yeah, and so this is why he chose a target that wasn't that well fortified, and this is what happened in Columbus, March 9th, 1916.
Yep, and that, of course, led to the raid, as we have the picture up here. And as Keith Walden also reminds us, don't forget the supposed trip to provide proofs he wasn't responsible for the massacre of those 17 miners in February, the Gringo's Curve, which we've talked about previously.
Exactly, yeah. And so there's actually the story of this journalist, AP news journalist, George Sese, who was in Columbus on the day of the raid. He came into town, supposedly, to take Pancho Villa to Washington. And so they followed him. The BI was investigating him afterwards. And so it was never quite confirmed what information he had and where he got it from. But it's one of the examples of people around the area knew that Pancho Villa was coming. And so Slocum is the one that really got dinged for this, because he really overslept the whole thing. Literally, actually. and so it caused 18 American deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, the reaction afterwards was the Punitive Expedition, a major incursion into Mexico. And so this was again, here is Cobb, at this critical intersection between intelligence and also activity, because as customs collector, he also was the one that cut Pancho Villa off, literally. Yeah,
and just amazing, just in 2 posters, an amazing demonstration of the reversal of the fortunes as seen by Pancho Villa. Here we had the recruitment poster up that had been in place previous to these incidents coming in, and could be seen as almost the high point there right before then the raid on the stash house. And then, of course, after the Columbus raid, there were wanted posters for him, the punitive expedition. Again, it went very badly after that point.
It did. So at this point, during that period, 1916, something interesting happens, which is that Secretary of State Lansing, Bryan had resigned in the summer of 1915 with a dispute about the Lusitania notes to Germany. And so Lansing, much more aggressive towards Germany, had the idea that, look, we need to shut down the Mexican Revolution so that we can concentrate on the European war. So that was his drive. Is reasonable, you could say. And so one of the things that Lansing implemented was to create a secret intelligence bureau within the State Department. So this informal role that that Cobb had over these last 2 or 3 years as a intelligence gatherer, working for the Customs Department, but also helping out the State Department. That now turned into a formal position. So he actually became a special agent within the Secret Intelligence Agency of the State Department. And you show here in 1917, every male in the United States had to register for the draft for World War I. And so I pulled up his draft card. And if you look at the bottom there, who he worked for at the time in 1917, State Department.
Yep,
right?
special agent, federal government there, State Department. Interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Because the Secret Intelligence Bureau is a very secretive organization. Not much is known about it. In fact, there's not a single book written about it at this point. This might be my next project. It really fascinates me. And so here is one of the earliest agents of this agency who actually worked for the State Department as a spy even before. But now he's official. And
we'll tell you what, let's wait for just a minute. We got to take that next to last break here.
All right.
We'll come back, finish this out, talk about the end of this story with Cobb here, and finish out the show again. We'll be back after this break with more of the El Paso History Radio Show here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina serves the old Griggs Mexican food recipes in a new location at 6761 Donovan Drive. Enjoy great New Mexican food with cold beer and the one and only margarita from the cantina. The managers and cooks from the original Griggs restaurant serve tacos, combination plates, and sopapillas. Get the best Mexican food in the valley at Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant and Cantina, 6761 Donovan, near Loop 375. Call 877-2152.
Many retired El Paso area homeowners don't know where to begin when it comes to downsizing and selling their home. Patrick Tuttle and his Legacy Home team follow a proven process to help retired homeowners sell faster and for more money. Call Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850 today and get your home sold faster and for more money. That's Patrick Tuttle at 915-588-1850. Call him today.
I bought football tickets for my husband's birthday, and now I'm in a football bubble. All I see online are articles and ads about football. I hate feeling manipulated. I downloaded DuckDuckGo and saw a difference right away. Take back your privacy online with DuckDuckGo. Privacy simplified.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a 50-year-old male, maybe a bit porky, and you may even have type 2 diabetes, $1 million of term insurance may only cost you about $200 a month. Call Term Provider. Speak with Big Lou at 800-529-2856. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, are overweight, or have high blood pressure. Term Provider has helped thousands of people like you who think they can't afford term life insurance. To buy $1 million of affordable term life for you, all you need to do is call Big Lou at 800-529-2856. Lou will make sure the scales are tipped in your favor. Call 800-529-2856. Big Lou will answer your call and work to fit you into a term life policy that you can afford. Remember, Big Lou's like you. He's on meds too. For affordable term life, call 800-529-2856.
The uh-ohs are out there. Scratches, dents, unexpected natural events. But with Mako and their magic, your car is no longer tragic. So when life throws you uh-ohs, just say,
Better get Mako.
and go to Mako.com to book your appointment today.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
At the United States Postal Service, we deliver with advanced technology and equipment so we can reach over 160 million addresses across the country. We're delivering for thinkers, doers, movers, shakers, groundbreakers, future makers, innovators, trailblazers, disruptors, streamers, dreamers. So no matter what business you're in, we'll always be delivering for you. USPS, delivering for America. Learn more at USPS.com/delivering.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
And now, let's turn back the pages of time and return to the El Paso History Radio Show. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle, Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate. 915-588-1850. Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, 6761 Donovan Drive. By M1 EP Management Corporation, 915-592-4549. by Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Here again, El Paso History with Andrew J. Polk.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us here for the El Paso History Radio Show. That's going to do it for us today. I want to thank again Heribert von Feilitzsch for joining us here today. Just real quick in a sentence, after all this activity with Zach Cobb, he then went on to lead a private life after that.
That's right. He left the State Department in 1920, goes to L.A., starts a law practice, and became a big Democrat, orator, supported Roosevelt, supported Truman, and died in 1951. That's his end.
All right. So if you want to find out more about that, we're going to go out to Pepe's after this, so find us out there. Otherwise, thank everyone who did tune in to the show. We'll see you again next week here on the El Paso History Radio Show.
Listening to the El Paso History Radio Show. We hope you'll join us again next Saturday morning, 10 to noon. And be sure to tell a friend about us. Brought to you by Patrick Tuttle Coldwell Banker Heritage Real Estate, 915-588-1850. By Pepe's New Mexican Restaurant, home of the Juan and Only Margarita. By M1 EP Management Corporation. By Mission Del Rey Southwest, 1421 Lee Trevino, with El Paso souvenirs, decor, and gift shopping. Thank you for joining us from the studios of News Radio 690, KTSM AM El Paso.
Hey, El Paso, this is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager from Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We've extended Ram truck months, and deals are even bigger and better with 0% interest, more for your trade, huge savings, and a huge selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles with more arriving daily.
Buy now and get huge savings during Ram Truck Month at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Save thousands in interest with 0 APR for 72 months on the all-new 2022 Jeep Wagoneer.